Hello, my name is Ben Fairfield. Welcome to TMEA Trumpet Tips, episode number 1. We're going to start with, of course, TMEA 2023-2024 Trumpet Etude number 1, which is from the Wurm 40 Studies, 40 Etudes, number 26. And we're going to go through the first 12 measures of that particular etude. So if you have not numbered your measures quite yet, go ahead and do that now. And if it is helpful to you, I got to measure 12. The beginning, the first measure of the fourth line is where I got to measure 12. And I will refer to specific measure numbers as we go along. So my plan for these brief videos is to go ahead and play through that chunk of music, and then I'm going to just practice. And I'm going to show you how I'm practicing, what I'm practicing, if there's any other material that I like to go to help supplement these, and most importantly, kind of why I'm doing it that way. Now, certainly this is not going to be the only way you should practice these etudes, or you can practice these etudes. You have teachers of your own, you have friends, colleagues that you can learn from. You can get creative and come up with your own solutions, which I hope you do. But these will help kind of set you on that path of, okay, how can I get creative with these solutions? And hopefully you'll find some useful information along the way. So without any further ado, I'm going to play measures 1 through 12 of Wurm 26. And then I'm going to practice and tell you what I'm doing. And hopefully you'll find some helpful material. So there's the first 12 measures. Okay, the first step is, let's figure out what key we're playing in. And you look at the etude and you see 1 flat, the B flat at the beginning, and most people have already told me, we're playing an F major. Well, my first question is, does that sound what I just played like it's in a major key? No, not really. Okay, you're right, the scale was 1 flat, the major scale was 1 flat, is F major. However, if you look, and this is not always the case of how to find the minor key, but in this case it is, the first note of the etude, the last note of the etude are both D. You see a lot of C sharps as you go along, which is another indicator that maybe something is a little non-major about this as well. If you know a little bit about music theory, 1 flat also tells you that the relative minor key of F major is D minor. So if you start a scale on D and use 1 flat, that B flat, you also end up with what's called the D natural minor. And that's the key we're playing in, although it's not the natural minor because we see the C sharps, right? So we're going to raise that 7th note of the scale, D, E, F, natural, G, A, B, C sharp, in this case, D. And that's the scale we need to be practicing. This is called the D harmonic minor scale. So practice that scale up and down, slurred, tongued, articulate, whatever you want to do, slur to, tongue to, switch patterns, but practice in any kind of way. That D harmonic minor scale, okay? So now, specifically dealing with the first couple measures, what I like to do is strip away the repeated right? In the first 2 measures, you have that F, E, D after what's on big beat 1 and what's on big beat 2. 4 times it's the same. So let's take what's on big beat 1 and big beat 2, or little beat 1 and 4, and just outline. And sure enough, that spells out our D minor triad, D, F, A, right? So also I would recommend, in addition to playing that D, well, both natural and harmonic minor scale, but especially the harmonic minor scale, go ahead and add that arpeggio, the D minor arpeggio. In whatever pattern you're most comfortable with. But get comfortable in that harmonic language because that's the key we're using through most of this etude. It does change a little bit, and we'll get to that in the next episode. But this first chunk is always in what we call D harmonic minor. Now, as we add the F, E, D back in, what I like to do is I'll call it fill in the blank between the low D and then whatever note it's going up to. In the first case, it's A, and then to the D, and then to the F, and so on. So what I'll do is very slowly in the D, and I'll use natural minor for this, in the D natural minor scale, I'll fill in the blank between the skips, like this. horizontally, whatever you want to call it, right? We see this athleticism of D, A, D, F, and it keeps going up and up and up. Well, that's not a choice for our air. We have to go forward with the air. So I want to make sure that horizontal motion is there with a and so on. Okay. The other thing that is helpful for this particular section, this first two measures, is found in the Arbin book, the Arbin Complete Conservatory Method. On page 125 of the more common version of the Arbin book. It's called Studies on the Intervals. Okay, and so use any of these really, but specifically where I would go for this one's the third one down. This is written in D major, and I would play these slowly, something like. Or even slower, if you would like. But you get that practice from going to the extreme low into the upper. And I would also recommend changing this key, since we're working with D minor, this is written in D major, I would change this key to D harmonic minor. So I would change the F to an F natural, I would change the B to a B flat, and I would keep the C sharp, something like. Feel free to use any of the other keys. Some of them are a little bit lower, some of them are a little bit higher. Those would also be helpful, but most helpful would be that third one down. All right. And so then as you go back and start to add this without either of that supplemental exercise or the fill in blank exercise, go very slowly, right? You're doing a couple things. One, you want an ear training exercise of what are the intervals that I'm aiming for, that arpeggio and the scale practice will help that quite a bit. And also, you want to make sure that your air is, number one, not stopping, and number two, always moving forward. So something slow like. Let me go ahead and do that because my computer is giving me that screen there, but something like that. Take these marked staccatos with a little bit of a grain of salt, okay? Very well articulated, but I would not in any way, shape, or form try to play these too separated or too short. Most people, when I ask them what does staccato mean, they say short, and that's not at all what it means. It means separated, kind of light, bouncy. So in this case, the quote-unquote staccato is going to come from the firmness, really, of the articulation, right? And I'm also using that last written D as kind of a springboard, right? I always use the example, if I'm going to jump and I want to go up a little bit and my legs are straight and my knees are locked, I can't really jump anywhere. I kind of have to get that downward motion before I can jump up. And then, you know, if I go down enough and get enough energy into the down, I can jump up as high as I can, really. Or the other analogy I like is a rubber ball. You have a rubber ball and you throw it down pretty hard. You send the energy down first, it bounces up fairly high, right? But if you just drop it, it barely comes back to your hand. So using that, either one of those analogies, using that low D as the springboard to go up. Right? The air's going forward, but you're using that low note as the springboard. Okay, moving on, in 3 and 4, we have some scales. You want to make sure these are very fluid. And when you land on that C sharp in measure 4, or 5, excuse me, you want to make sure that that C sharp is going to be low enough. And you want to leave that out for the next little bit, which we'll get to, right? So careful also with the articulation pattern in measure 3 and 4. You want to articulate on big beat 1 and big beat 2, or little beat 1, little beat 4, whatever you want to call it. But each time, and I'm going to over-exaggerate this, okay, so don't articulate it like that, but do make sure that you are articulating on big beat 1 and big beat 3 each time. And it closer to in time, that's like a. And you're going to have little mistakes like that when you practice. That's totally fine. Go back and fix that, right? Don't allow poor playing really at any time in this or in anything that you're playing, right? You're forming habits right now, so please, please, please practice these very slowly. As a matter of fact, If you have any kind of trouble with the fluidity or the notes or any kind of trouble at all with these scales in measures 3 and 4, the way I would practice is right? Or you can use fermatas, you can go very, very slowly. You can do anything creative to help you get one da 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 dee, da 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 da, that fluidity and that evenness of sound. Okay, measures 5 and 6, you can do much of the same thing you did in measures 1 and 2, where I would first outline the chord we end up playing, which in this case I'll just go ahead and tell you is called a C sharp diminished chord, the notes of which are C sharp, E natural, G, and B flat, right? That if you want to call it an arpeggio. Here goes my computer again. Let me turn you sideways so you might see my valves a little bit better. Same thing. C sharp, E, G, B flat, C sharp. Practicing that will be very helpful. There's also another Arbin page, the Arbin Complete Characteristic Studies on page 149. I'm sorry, the Arbin Complete Conservatory Method on page 149 is the title of this is the chord of the diminished seventh. Well, sure enough, we have that C diminished seventh. And looking at the second one down on page 149, the first and last measure in the key it's written in are D minor, right? That's a plus for us because that's what we're playing in. And the middle measures, all of those middle measures are that C sharp diminished chord, right? So this is a great exercise for us to practice, whether we're working on these measures 5 and 6 or not. Playing this, and slowly, you don't have to play it fast, but playing this page 149 of the Arbin book, second line down, starting on D, you have D minor and then the C sharp diminished. And there I missed that one C sharp, so what I would do if I were practicing this for real, right, see, there, I'm missing it again. I'm going to stop on it. And I keep I'm forming that wrong habit, so I would really stop. And then go back and work through that very, very fluidly. So practice this as well slowly, but I promise that will help. This whole etude really, but especially here. And then same thing, you can use the fill in the blank of that scale to use. Just to get the air moving forward. And same thing, practicing slowly. You can use fermatas, which we didn't do up top, but we could do something like. So that's the fermata on the front side of that. You can also use a fermata on the back side of that, which would be the low note that we were talking about, the springboard note. We could do like. Right, so we can use it that way. Measure 7 and 8, I would work through the same way I did 3 and 4. These are scales coming down. Make sure they're very fluid, they're very even. The articulation pattern is exactly what it's written. You're tonguing on beat 1, big beat 1 and big beat 2, or little beat 1 and 4, right? Right there in measure 7, in the second half of measure 7, starting on the E that's articulated, you have E, D, C sharp. Make sure you're keeping the C sharp there from the accidental in the previous part of the measure. B flat in the key signature, so that descending starting on measure 7, second half, E, D, C sharp, B flat, A, G, right? Here's measure 7 and 8. Same thing there, you want to make sure those low C sharps and low Ds are low enough. While I'm mentioning that, back in measures 5 and 6, I'm not moving my slide all the time. Once I land on that downbeat of measure 5, the I'm going to leave my slide where it is and go. That's a terrible C sharp. Right, so they're all going to be about the same, well, not about the same, they're all going to be the same pitch if I'm using my ear correctly, and I won't have to keep moving in and out. So just leave your slide there, and then, of course, bring it back in when you get to measure 7. Okay, so now this figure, we've done 7 and 8. 8 ends with. Make sure you're articulating the low D at the beginning of measure 9. Now we get this rather neat figure. I like this figure a lot in 9 and 10 of. Right? So it's an ascending figure, and as we had at the beginning, where the FED was the same, and same in measure 5, you have that E, D, and C sharp that are always repeated 4 times. This is repeated 1, 2, 3, 4 times again, go figure. The A, B flat A slur, the. So let's first bring out the interesting thing in measure 9 and 10, which are again the moving notes. And so it's D, A, C sharp, right? And then the next one goes into measure 10, E, A, D, F, A, E, G, A, F. Now, I'm a terrible singer, but it's not a terrible idea for you to practice that in your, the comfort of your own practice space where nobody else is around, to sing through those. And as much as you can approximate those pitches, it'll help your accuracy. You know what you're aiming for, you know what it sounds like, you're just kind of recreating that sound, right? But I would practice this frequently. Right, away from the connectivity of that. Now, when I went back and connected it, the stuff that stays the same, the A, B, A slur, I'm going to keep that kind of on the lighter side, and then I'm going to crescendo, pretty heavily crescendo, as I get to the top of the moving notes. Which leads me to the fact that in this etude, certainly in these first 12 measures, I think this is the only dynamic marking you have in the whole etude, and measure 1 is mezzo forte. That does not mean you're going to play the whole etude at one dynamic and leave it alone. For the most part, and we'll do this in a later video, you're going to follow the contour of the line. When the line goes up, you're going to kind of crescendo. Then the line comes down, you're going to decrescendo. If you start with that, you're going to be in good shape. But with this stuff at 9, I'm going to play a little lighter, I don't want to say softer, but a little lighter in character, maybe a little lighter dynamic than, for a couple reasons. One, I want to emphasize the changing notes. And number 2, it adds contrast and adds interest for your listeners, yeah? Now, in my practice room, first of all, I would play that better, but I would really kind of over-exaggerate this switch between dynamic things in my practice room, maybe something like. Now, I'm never going to play it like that, but I want to emphasize that contrast between the highs and lows, louds and softs, fulls and lights, whatever you want to call it. And then I would go back and kind of take some of that ridiculousness out of that. Right, still aiming for some contrast there, but also some fluidity to that line, right? Now in measure 11, we have a descending D minor arpeggio, right there in the first half. We start on the F, we ended the first phrase, the previous phrase on the F. So starting on the C sharp in measure 11. No, sorry. There's our D minor. Hopefully we've been working on that arpeggio. Right, in the second half of measure 11, you have an articulation pattern to watch out for. The first 2 notes slurred, C sharp slurs to D, F to A, both articulated, and then B flat slurs to the A, right? Ta ha, tong tong ta ha. Careful of that one. Right? And all of measure 12, all of the first half of measure 12 is slurred together. Which gives us a lip slur, a descending lip slur, between the A and the E, so make sure that the E is not going to pop out. It's not going to be like, because it's a lip slur. You want that very fluid. Don't make it a big deal. It's just another note in that phrase. The D, the quarter note D, first of all, this is the first time we've had a quarter note, so make that a little bit longer than the others, and make sure it's number 1 low enough, and number 2 long enough, right? And I'm crescendoing into that. Right, so let me check my notes here and make sure I'm covering everything I wanted to cover. All right, we talked about Arbin, we talked about the fill in the blanks. The D natural minor scale, the D harmonic minor scale, especially the one with the B flat and the C sharp. A lot of that practice in the arpeggio, the D minor, D, F, A, D. Those will be great. Playing that C sharp diminished arpeggio, diminished 7th arpeggio of. You'll find that written on Arbin, page 149. No, that's the second one down. Starts in D minor, which is our key, right? And then it goes immediately into that C sharp diminished 7th chord. That's a great page to work on for this entirety of the etude. We talked about the lack of printed dynamics. We'll talk about that more in future etudes. For now, we'll get a start with the fluidity of the sound. Never, never, never sacrifice the sound for a certain dynamic, whether it's loud or soft. You always, 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 the goal is to make a beautiful sound the whole way through. A very ringing, resonant, vibrant sound all the way through. Now that has the thousands of meanings when we're playing high, when we're playing low, when we're playing loud, when we're playing soft, when we articulate, when we slur, all that stuff. But the goal is make a beautiful sound, okay? So this whole etude, but especially here the opening 12 measures, it's going to have an overall character of kind of lightness. And sometimes I'll choose words to help me set that style, set that character, maybe if you want to call it. So words that come to mind: light, quick, nimble, kind of floating, buoyant. That's the kind of character you're after in these the first 12 measures. And then, those C sharps and Ds, you want to make sure that those are low enough. Okay? So if I have not explained anything well, or you have any questions, please email me. It's benfairfieldtrumpet@gmail.com. I will put that in the video description as well. Anytime you have any kind of questions, or I'm sure as we go on these videos, I'm going to skip something. I'm not going to explain something very well. I'll kind of gloss over something, and you want a little more help with that, shoot me an email, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So happy practicing on these first 12 etude or measures of etude number 1 or Wurm etude number 26, and I'll see you next week.